How's it going, everybody? My name is Artorigold, and today I want to talk about Winston, everybody's favorite scientist tank, and he has a lot of mobility for a tank, and he's really good at diving, and he's pretty good at protecting his team with his bubble, but mostly you're just going to be protecting your team by disrupting the enemy team. It's weird when you compare it to somebody like Reinhardt, who's a tank that basically creates space by being an anchor and protecting his team with the shield, and everybody kind of moves together with him. Winston, however, creates space by diving into the enemy team's backline and disrupting them, making them kind of have like this weird moment or decision making where it's like, okay, do we go back and do we try to protect who he's diving, or do we have to try and focus on what we're doing on the front line and continue what we're doing so the enemy team doesn't push forward more? But in that instance, that decision can maybe go wrong for him, because if they decide to focus on the front line and you're sitting there zapping away at the enemy backline supports, then you're able to really disrupt them and make them have less healing, and they're not going to be, because the enemy team is going to be focused on healing each other in the backline or just surviving from your dive. So the enemy team is not going to be focused more on the front line. Or rather, the front line is going to be weaker because what you're doing to the enemy supports is making them not able to heal the front line. So you're basically a disrupt tank, which is kind of an interesting way to think of it. But basically, you go and you engage on the high ground, just like that. All you want to do is you're going to just try to get up there, and you're going to kind of have a guerrilla warfare style. Yeah, get it? And you're basically jumping in, dropping a bubble, then zapping them as much as possible, and then getting out whenever your health gets to probably around 200 or lower. If you've ever played any games like League of Legends or something, and you know how you have that mini-map in your left or right corner, and that's basically the information you always want to look at. Like every 5 seconds, you want to look at that mini-map, right? And it's very similar to playing Overwatch with when you're playing a tank. You constantly want to look in this little corner, and you want to look at your health. And every time you're playing Winston, you just want to kind of really manage your health and make sure that whenever you get really low, around that halfway point or lower, you want to make sure you have your leap to get out. And that's basically what your entire goal with Winston is you go in, you disrupt them as much as possible, you put a bubble on them, you block their abilities, maybe, disrupt their healing, you create space for your team, they're able to do what they want because you're distracting, and then at the same time, you have to be able to get out. So for example, right there, my Genji was getting a ton of damage in. He was able to use his blade. Like, let's watch this fight back a little bit. So I go deep onto the enemy team, and what I'm doing is I'm dropping the bubble on the enemy, the enemy itself. So if I drop a bubble on an enemy, it makes it so the enemy Ana is not able to heal anybody who's inside the bubble. This goes through, I think, this is a lot of healing abilities. So if an enemy is trapped inside your bubble, they're not going to be able to get any Ana heals. They're not able to get Lucio heals. There's a lot of things that your bubble kind of blocks that you wouldn't really think about. I think Mercy heal will go through it, and Moira orbs and heals can go through it. Most importantly, Ana is extremely meta right now. So if you're able to go and drop a bubble on top of a squishy hero and deny the enemy Ana heals, then that's going to be a pretty crazy. You're going to be able to blow them up very easily. So here I basically went in, I used my ult, I created a lot of space for my team. The enemy Winston is trying to do the same, but at the same time, my Genji is able to just get a really nice Dragon Blade off. And one of the reasons why is because that enemy Winston was not able to stop him. One of the things about Genji is that he's very hard to do damage to, especially if he's a Nano Dragon Blade, but a Winston does pretty well at kind of just slowly zapping him, especially because deflect doesn't work against it. And you have your leap, so you're able to constantly kind of stay on him or nearby him, and you're able to give the Genji a really hard time during Dragon Blade, and sometimes maybe just make it so he gets less kills, does less damage, because you're in his face body blocking him and all those things. So body blocking is a very important strategy as well. Also, if the enemy team has snipers or hit scan characters as well, one of the more advanced things you can do with Winston is you can actually not show your head to the opponent. For example, you can kind of just walk backwards or just turn your head in a different way. So as you're retreating or as you are engaging on an enemy, they are not able to hit your head hitbox because, you know, tanks have a bigger head hitbox than other people. And it's very easy to kind of just, you know, die to a Widow headshot and you're like mid-leap or you're engaging on a Widowmaker, trying to make sure that she can't do what she wants. She lands a headshot on you, you land on top of her, and then she's just going to kill you with the SMG part. So being able to master where you position your head is a big thing about Winston, or just tanks in general. I think it's very important with Winston, but it's also very important with Orisa, because Orisa, I think, has the easiest head hitbox in the game. So she dies really quickly if the enemy team has snipers. One of the biggest things about Winston, I think a lot of people know of this already, but basically when you use your leap, it's going to do damage when you land on someone. Same thing with your melee. Your melee does like 30 damage. As you can see, I do it right here. So when you leap on somebody, right before you land, you want to melee them. So basically, you're going to add your leap damage, then your melee damage to someone, and then your melee animation is going to be canceled as you land for the leap animation, making it so you can go into your gun firing a lot quicker. It's basically just an extra little bit of burst damage whenever you leap at someone. This is something that you pretty much want to do every single time. So yeah, do it right here. See, I land and I melee, and at the same time, the melee gets canceled. So I'm able to just go right into the gun as quickly as possible. This is a very important way to make sure you do more damage to people. It's extremely effective against squishy targets. One other very important thing that you should do every time is you should throw in melee attacks whenever you're kind of in a 1v1 or fighting against an enemy tank with armor. The way that armor works, or rather just I guess how meleeing and how your lightning gun works, is that your lightning gun does do a little bit of damage. It's very consistent, but it's not going to do a whole lot against armor. Armor just, you know, it doesn't do much. But your melee attack will actually do more. So one of the best things for you to do is to left click melee against enemy tanks with armor. Once the armor is gone, you can just focus on doing your left clicks because it just does a lot more. But with armor, that is not the case. And another big reason why you do this is because you're actually saving ammo. And as you save ammo this way, you're going to get to your reload. It's going to save on your reload time. So you're going to increase your DPS, and also you're going to have more ammo, so you could maybe change your focus to a squishy target halfway through, because, you know, maybe you don't want to try and sit there and left-click melee a tank. Maybe if they're the last person there, obviously you want to do that, but, you know, not in every instance. Sometimes you want to do something else. So that's some very important tips to take away with Winston. Always use your combo with that. So your ultimate basically gets you up to 1000 HP when you use it, and it makes your jump basically a 2-second cooldown, giving you a lot more mobility, and all of your melee attacks will boot people away. So you can use it to get people off the objective, to boot them off the map, get kills. You can also just use it for DPS or survivability. There's a lot of ways you can use it. I think that one of the better ways to use it is to basically just get all of your health back. So if you're engaging in a fight with someone and you're about to die, you get really low, use your ult, and then bam, you immediately have 1000 health, and then you can try and get back into the action with that. It's very effective at stalling. Another good thing, you can use it aggressively to get kills. If an enemy gets trapped in a little corner or something, for example, if you're fighting somebody and they get in this corner, and you might not be able to kill them with your lightning gun, or maybe you're just too low, you can just use your ult and you can constantly juggle them in this corner because they're booping them and they can't move, then you're just going to secure a kill that way. You get your ultimate pretty quickly as Winston. I would say that if you're maximizing your cleave, because your left click can kind of shoot out in front of you in this like arc, or maybe not an arc, what would you call this? It shoots out in a wide area, right? So you're able to hit a lot of targets in front of you. One of the things about it is it's kind of like a funnel, right? So you're going to be able to do more damage and more ult charge and hit more targets on the outside of the range in this area, right? But if you try and get people up close, it's only going to have a little bit of range. So one of the things that you want to look for is you want to be at this range where you can hit this outer ring of your gun, and that way you have maximum like widespread to hit more targets and get more ult charge and do more damage. If you get too close, your left click is only going to affect the people directly in front of you. So that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're maximizing damage, is you want to kind of get that sweet spot right on the outside of the range that allows you to have maximum cleave or AoE or whatever you want to call it. So here, one of the big strategies of Winston, and I just did it right here, so let's rewind a little bit, is one of the things I'm doing is I'm not using my leap to engage. Rather, I'm just dropping down on the enemy and walking forward. You see that? I'm not using my leap. I'm not using my leap. Instead, I'm saving my leap for the disengage. One of the very important things of Winston is, as good as your leap is for engaging, if you're able to get away with just simply walking forward, or rather just dropping on top of an enemy like this. See how I'm just dropping on an enemy, using a bubble, doing damage, and then just leaping out? That's much better than leaping in, because sometimes the enemy team could just kill you in those, like 5 seconds that your cooldown is gone, and then you're not able to escape. So it's much better in that situation to kind of just play it slower. Using your leap for a little bit of extra damage and committing for a kill can be really good. In this instance, I commit for the kill and use my ultimate, kind of boop the Zarya a little bit back away to get maybe another staggered kill on her. That's definitely a much more aggressive way to play your ultimate as Winston. It's really good to use it for kills and maybe even boop enemies out of position to where you can kind of get a kill on them. And also, because the damage is lower, you can kind of stagger that kill a little bit, making the respawn a lot longer. Ultimately, that ultimate was kind of more of a meme, I think, because the enemy team, they're getting a little stomped here, so I don't think that was a really good ultimate. It was more of just me trying to be more aggressive and assert dominance on them. So yeah, whenever playing Winston, always just try to drop down on the enemy, wait for your cooldowns to come back up before you go back in. As you can see right there, I simply waited. I could have gone in a little bit earlier, but because it's 6 seconds for the leap. See, I could have gone in right there, but because the enemy had a Reaper, there definitely would have been a problem if I got hit with like a full headshot and I wasn't having my leap cooldown ready. So waiting for your cooldowns is very important. I think with every character in the game, you really have to watch your cooldowns and watch your health, and you want to make sure that you're going in, but you're not like committing to it unless you have an escape. You need to have an escape route and kind of plan for it, and that's one of the big things with Winston. You always want to plan your escape. If you engage with your leap, you definitely see right here, I had no escape. What was bad about this engage? Several different things. First off, I was going into a tight little corridor, little room. I had no escape plan. I used my leap right here. And also, I was leaping on a Tracer, which does nothing. She could just recall or blink away. It was also very unlucky that the Reaper was right there, and I was 5% away from my ultimate. So those things were all really bad. But first off, if I just didn't go in there, there was no reason for me to. I could have denied that enemy Tracer the space simply by putting myself at the corridor and being able to put a bubble there or zapping or whatever, and there was no reason to fully commit myself to go in there unless maybe I had my ultimate. But either way, it's not really worth it to use against Tracer, who has blinks and can recall out of it. Instead, I should not have gone in there. So that's one of the things. I had no escape plan with that. If my ultimate could have been used, that might have been my escape plan, because you get a lot more mobility that way. But other than that, yeah, it just wasn't really worth it. Also, good example of right here, what you can do is that 30 damage melee attack is a great way to get a little extra burst damage. If you're trying to get a kill on somebody, using your melee attack as a finishing blow or as an execute is what you should be looking to do every single time as Winston. That's definitely going into maximizing your DPS. There are a lot of very small things with Winston, but by using them and making sure to really use them every single time, it's a lot of work to be able to make sure you use that melee with every leap, to use it for every finishing blow. It's a lot of work to do that, and you have to remember, and you got to just kind of, engrave it into your mind, really just turn it into muscle memory to the point where you don't even really have to think about it. You just do it. And that's one of the things about Winston. You have a lot of small things that you can do to improve your gameplay all around, and it's going to really maximize your damage and all kinds of things. So anyways, that's all I have to say about Winston. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hopefully think you learned a little bit, and I'll see you guys next time.